You're gonna run our scroll.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna run the scroll.
Damn it. That should be-
Run the damn scroll, Rob.
There,
Scroll
it's
it. There it
there.
is. Please like, subscribe, and share the show. And comment too, as we are here for another episode of What's Good Under the Hood. Greg Hood, owner of Mazda of Columbia, and Rob Sanders of Fox Sports Radio 1400. My name is Andy. I work for iHeartMedia. I'm a team player. I work for everybody here.
You do.
I do.
You're the best.
And here we go
You've
again.
been doing it for how long?
12 months.
Right.
12 seconds.
It's
Not counting today how long
Yeah.
you've been doing this.
Yeah,
So,
quite a while.
yep. Well, so what's up, Rob?
Well, it's great to be back with another edition of What's Good Under the Hood. You know, there's a lot of things we were going to talk about today, but I wanted to mention someone that has subscribed to the show. That's what Andy was talking about. And there was a buddy of mine that was talking about the electric cars and how you need a battery for them and things like that. I wanted to pull up on the screen here, and I have to make this full screen so people can see it. But if you look at it, I'm going to read it to you
How about
closely
full
here.
screen and glasses?
Yeah, I know, right? But shout out to Mike Williams, who's on Facebook, and I posted a video about are we being forced to get an EV, and some good conversation from him. He was talking about Teslas being overpriced, but he watched that entire show, and we appreciate him subscribing. And I mean, he literally wrote us a book, and he said about Greg. He said, Greg's anecdote is a great example of the struggles of early adoption, similar to what an automobile driver might have experienced if they forgot to bring extra fuel with them in the early 1900s, which is kind of an interesting thing there with the whole, the idea of not having enough charging stations and stuff like that. But we appreciate folks commenting and Mike for following the show. That was really
It was
cool
a very thoughtful response. You forwarded that to me, and I appreciated that. You know, this EV thing, and I want to correct something. I had made the comment. I think I made the comment. I went last week, or it was week before last. I think we were talking about General Motors, and I said they had sold 400 electric vehicles in a month. It was the quarter. I said, because I remember month or quarter, I couldn't quite remember. It was in a quarter. So part of the problem is that they're still having battery issues. They've got bolts sitting behind the dealership. These Chevy stores, there's cars that are there, and there's people that want to buy them. I mean, I talked to my brother. He's a general manager of a Chevy store, and he's got some cars sitting there waiting for the proper batteries, I guess, to come, and he's got them pre-sold. So it's not like they're just flat. But he's also in Sacramento, California, so that's a different market than we have in Columbia, South Carolina.
Just like you said the other day, I mean, it's almost like a status symbol having an EV.
Correct.
In certain areas, it really is.
So, you know, Mazda's problem obviously is, well, a better way of putting it is that they're dragging their feet. They're kind of in that wait and see moment of what really happens with this, because I'm not sure they're completely sold on the idea that EV is going to solve the world's problems.
That
here.
may be a smart move from Mazda.
Well, I think it is. I think that when GM's got all its eggs in one basket, and Hyundai is just now building another plant. Where was that, in Alabama?
No, it's actually in Georgia.
In Georgia,
and they're gonna, from what I read, I mean, it's gonna be what, 300,000 cars?
Yeah, electric, all electric
cars. Which, you know, when you stop and we just look at it from the perspective of what it's gonna have on that section of Georgia. They're putting out 300,000 cars. They're going to be employing some folks. So that's good.
Yeah, it'll be a big plant. But what'll happen, though, is, you know, we talked about adoption of the product. The other side of this is that everybody complains about the price of used cars right now. The more they keep shoving this EV stuff down our throat that nobody can afford, or if they can't afford it, they have to be subvented somehow by some tax benefit, which means I'm paying for your EV or vice versa. You know, but there will be people that will not adopt to that, and they will go out and buy used cars if there are mostly EVs that are available. So it's changing the landscape of a lot of things. You had sent me an article kind of questioning about part supplies and
right.
Advanced and, you know, O'Reilly and all these companies that are in the parts business, and how will it impact them of going to that? Well, they're already stocking parts for some of the EVs. One of the statements that was made in there is everybody forgets they even have a 12-volt battery and a regular old battery as well. So it's not just the batteries that are the long life. They have a normal battery in them, so they have to be able to supply those kinds of parts, and you got brakes and all the other stuff. So and I think that if people go deeper, the average used car right now is 12 years old. So if they go deeper into that, then parts houses will probably do better because they will have the opportunity to sell more parts to older vehicles
And
keep
manufacturers
them
of
on
the
road.
older parts too.
Yeah, so
So it could
it'll
be
have a positive and a negative effect, kind of all in one. But it will probably be one of the things that keeps used car prices up higher, because people will not necessarily want to move into that electrification. I still, for the life of me, I'm going to say one more time, what is wrong with a hybrid? It's using fuel, but not nearly as much. I mean, why can't we just walk to it instead of running full blast into something where we're just going to get nailed at the end, as usual, like we talked about the DEF situation last podcast.
Right. Well, I had a Honda Civic Hybrid before the Honda that I have now, and my Civic Hybrid got, I think it was 64 miles a gallon.
Right.
I mean, and you want to talk about, I mean, I filled up once a month.
My
Good to
motorcycle
go.
doesn't get that good at mileage. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's a pretty neat thing. I did read something else, is that I can't figure out either, is that they said that motorcycle sales are down. And I'm like, what? Why would that be? I would think that people go, oh, I'm not paying this. I'm going to get myself a motorcycle and, you know, just ride that and saving myself some money. But they said they're down about 11%. I don't know why. It may be a function of just production because everybody's down.
Yeah, but do you think that there's a section of people that are just like, you know what, I'm just going to drive the car that I have. I don't really care about the gas portion of it. Or do you think that it's going to correct themselves? What I mean by that is that, man, it's going to cost me an extra $30 to fill up my gas tank. I mean, that's going to hit you eventually. You think that people may auto correct, I guess is the term, to be like, maybe I should look into that EV. Just because of
well, that's what they're trying to do to us.
Right.
That's forced by our government. But
He even admitted that the other day.
yes, he did.
Yeah.
Well, they've said it on more than one occasion, you know, that everybody should be able to go out and spend 60 grand on a car. The one thing I haven't seen happen yet, which is a little strange, and I don't know what the economic tipping point for gas is now versus what it was in 2005.
Right.
Because in 2005 is when that whole thing started, before we rolled into the recession, when gas prices got to $5 a gallon. A $5 gallon price then is what now? $6.50? I don't know.
Right.
And we're not there yet. So across the country, you know, it's in the $4 for regular, in the $4 to $5. You get out in California, it's $6.50. So it's a lot more money there, but it's more heavily taxed, and there's a whole bunch of reasons. But what happened in the last go round is when people, and I'm going to say this, sorry if you're listening and I hurt your feelings, but who got stupid and didn't do the math. They were driving a Tahoe, and the gas price went to $5. So they went to Toyota and they lost $25,000-$30,000 in depreciation on the car because the dealer couldn't give the thing away either. And then they went and paid 10 grand over market value for a Prius, got into a car they absolutely couldn't stand, trying to save money on fuel. If they had just amortized their gas bill out over $25,000, they would have been better and drove the car they wanted. But at some point it'll happen again. I say a little pressure I had a Prius we took in trade, and the amount of leads that came in on that car in a period of 2 days was just breathtaking, because people are thinking about it. So if they're going to go out and replace a car, they're looking at a used fuel efficient car. It's changing, but it's not shifting it like it did back then. People are still buying trucks, and they're still buying larger SUVs. They haven't gone cold.
But you mentioned people maybe trying to get some of those fuel efficient cars. I mean, the math just doesn't seem to work though when it comes to actually buying an electric vehicle with the cost that comes with it. I mean, if you just like you were talking about, just doing the math on that, it just doesn't make sense right now. I mean, it seems like, you know, like the first version of the iPhone. Remember when you got your first iPhone and it was like, wow, this is the greatest thing ever. There were so many bugs in it. And then they went and they eventually fixed it, and they worked all the bugs out. I think that's kind of where we are with the EV thing. It's like, yeah, we've got this first set of them, but they're not perfect.
I'll give you another example of something that was done for environmental reasons, and it has to do with the energy production. And it's one of the things that's creating a problem, especially in Texas, is these wind farms that they put in.
Huh?
They are incredibly expensive. They are harmful to the environment. because if you want to talk about disrupting things, it's the construction of them and the bases and everything they have to put in. And then, yeah, they're out in rural areas, but what if the wind doesn't blow, or what if the wind doesn't blow enough? And enough is the real question. You know, are they seeing the return on they should be? And then now they're finally getting into working on how to recycle those blades. And they're saying the life of a fan is about 20 to 25 years, but it's turning out that's not to be correct. And so they're killing. Did I mention they're killing birds?
No, you didn't, but I was thinking about that.
They're whacking birds at a pretty good rate too. And I've seen them, and I look and I go, how come a bird can't get out of the way of that? But anyway, and then there's lubricants that are in them. There's all kinds of stuff that's going on with those, and the impacts they have versus what they produce. And so, you know, it looks good. That's the thing. And solar panels. What do you do with solar panels when they're done? You know, who is it that's keeping them clean so they're operating efficiently? Because if a solar panel gets dirt on it, it's not the efficacy of the panel goes down.
And who is it that's making them?
Well, so the Chinese are making a lot of them now. So originally a solar panel had a life of about 20 years, they calculated. The ones that are coming from China and places like that are about 5 or 6 years. So you have a disposal problem. You know, I'm going to be pro nuke right here. If we had nuclear, and here's one more thing I haven't quite figured out, is they've got these huge nuclear power plants, but they have the ability to do smaller ones. And so why wouldn't you do smaller, more manageable plants that if you had an issue with it, that's actually manageable, and say you could run half a city with one instead of having, or actually you could make small ones where you could run 20 blocks, you know, of stuff. Why that hasn't happened yet, I'm not sure.
Because that would make too much sense, because then if you did have some issues with it, you could just isolate that plant and just, okay,
you could take it
that offline and move it and do that. Yeah.
It makes total sense to me. So there was a study that was done on deaths per, and it wasn't kilowatt and it wasn't gigawatt. There's some bigger measurement, and I can't remember what it is, but the lowest deaths per of any kind of electrical generation comes from nuclear by a long shot. I mean, a long shot.
I mean, it's a rarity if you have an issue with a nuclear
right. And
plant.
they were even taking into consider 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl and Fukushima as part of that equation of how many people are injured or died. And it is by far the cleanest. And the guy, was his name Peter? The guy who founded Greenpeace, he's very pro-nuclear.
And the talking point on that is, well, what happens when the nuclear rods, and we got to have a disposal of those?
Well, no, now they recycle them.
Yeah.
And you know, you can recycle them many times. And so they have a whole lot less nuclear waste and they can contain it. But here's the thing, there's a lot less of that to contain than there is the other crap that they're doing. And if they just put nuclear in everywhere, France is over there running 80% of their electricity comes from nuclear, and they're doing just fine with it. So why aren't we doing the same thing? And then you want to do the EV thing till the cows come home, they can make as much electricity as they want.
But otherwise, they're burning fossil fuels and coal to make electricity with to run the EVs.
Some of it, yeah. I mean, you've got like I said, Lake Murray's got a coal-fired plant behind it. I mean, they're still burning a fair amount, or it's natural gas, in which are pollutants. I get it. But if you had nuclear, there is no pollutant other than waste, and they seem to have a grip on that. But now there's you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Shuttering. They're shutting those down. California shut down a bunch of them. I just don't understand. But we could solve the problem. I would be more of saying, well, yeah, if we had electric energy abundant, then push forward electric cars. You know, there's some parts of them I think are great.
Well, I think there's still a lot of work to be done, even though they're going to build 300,000 Hyundais in the Peach State, which is right next to us. Which, wow, when you see that, it's just like, do we really need 300,000 EVs from Georgia?
Well, I'd rather have them from here than somewhere else in our area. You know, that helps economies grow, because we're going to stumble through some of this stuff.
Look at Greg; he found the goodness from EVs.
Well, my heart is warm today.
Yeah, I'm just saying we found some goodness there, Andy. That's good, right?
Yes, it is. It's a good day.
Exactly. Andy's looking at me like, what?
Sorry, I'm looking.
What time is it?
It's hammer time.
There you go.
Hammer time.
Yeah.
All right. We got anything else, or we're wrapping it up?
Well, I mean, we did talk about the parts, and we talked about the big new plant, and we talked about our good buddy Mike there, who, of course, talked about EVs too. So, I guess the cool part is that you can be like Mike and subscribe and make. I mean, Mike wrote a book. I mean, he really
He
did.
Well, he thought it through. He took some time to really think about what we talked about and put that down there, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, so great stuff there, and of course, as always, like, subscribe, and share the show, right, Andy?
And comment in the show too.
Yeah.
Greg Hood, Mazda of Columbia, Rob Sanders, Fox Sports Radio 1400. Me, Andy Woods. Thanks for watching, and make sure you comment. What's good under the hood?
I'm gonna comment. That was some really good dead air we had there.
that was deer in the headlights.
It doesn't happen much.
No, it doesn't.
All right.